There was just a little bit of technical snag. Okay, first of all, I would like to thank you very much, Shubhi, for joining us for this event. It was really great of you to come and share your knowledge with all the students of our college and beyond. So thank you so much.
Sure, you can hear me now, right?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Awesome. Thank you so much. No problem. Nice to be here.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone.
Okay, so before we start the actual event, I would like to give an introduction of our association, the Computer Science and Engineering Association. So the CSEA, or the Computer Science and Engineering Association of NIT Warangal, is our official branch association. It was started in 2002, and we have been working since then continuously for the welfare of the students of our college. And the CSEA conducts events round the year for the benefits of students of not just CSE but all branches. And we conduct several events like Alumni Connect, where we gain from the experience of our alumni, State Outer CSED, where we bring out inspiring stories from our CSE department, then hackathons, collaborations with several organizations to conduct workshops on web development, machine learning, and coding contests, quizzes, among a lot of other events. So, our team tirelessly works to bring out the best content. So, under the guidance of our faculty advisor, Professor H.G. Sanjeevi, and the hard work has paid off as well, as we have been the best association in NIT Warangal for the past 2 years. And among several events to come this semester, this is the second instance of our new series, Talks with CSEA, where we are going to talk about the journey from a software engineer to product manager at a startup with you. So let's begin. Yeah. So first point I would like to mention here is that you are a product manager currently in Yellow Messenger. So a lot of people think like product manager is a job title that we hear a lot of people do after MBA. So what does a product manager actually do, and how does one start a career as a product manager? And another question tail to that is, do we need an MBA degree to be a product manager?
Okay, sure. So I think product manager's job varies a lot from based on the kind of company that you are in, right? Whether it's a small, medium, or large size company, because based on that, what you need to do to take your product to the next level changes. So if it's a larger company, then it's more about managing more stakeholders. You'll have like hundreds of enterprise customers, managing their features, etc. So that is more, I would say, more towards project management. It's not project management, it's a lot of stakeholder management for sure. You have to bring in more predictability in the system. It's about more in-depth data-driven competitive analysis and all of that. And for smaller companies, it's more about building 0 to 1 products, right? So if irrespective of the company size, if I had to tell you what a product manager does, basically their job is to define a product or a product line, right? Okay. So your job is to define a product line in a way that it basically brings or delivers some kind of business impact. So it can either be retention, it can either be higher revenue, whatever it is. And you will do whatever it takes to achieve that outcome. So it's a very cross-functional role. You must have seen that Venn diagram, right? So you have design, marketing, and design, business, and tech, and PM sits in the middle. Okay. So the point is, it's very cross-functional in nature. Okay. And the skills that a product manager should have is, I think, again, it's a multitude of skills. So hard skills would be, you should have very good intellectual ability to process a lot of information. So if you are building a new product, these days it's very easy to build anything, right? In the sense, a lot of people have access to tech, so people can build stuff. So it becomes very crucial to figure out what is the right thing to build, what is the right way to build that, etc. So that is one. Then second is having more system level thinking. So not very granular, but can you think in terms of systems? Can you predict what the world would look like 5 years from now? Can you predict how a certain feature will impact rest of stuff? And you should be comfortable with quants and data. So because the only way that you can predict how your features are doing is by looking at a lot of this data. So you should be very comfortable with data analysis. If you have a technical background, that helps for tech products. And of course, you should have a very good design sense, very good UX sense. Okay. And I think what's not talked about is the soft skills of a PM, right? So you should have, one is very influential communication. So there's one very famous phrase that PMs talk about, which is influence without authority. So the devs never report to you, but you still have to influence them in a way that is good for the business. So how do you do that? How do you demonstrate leadership? How do you demonstrate extreme ownership of the product? There's one thing people have started using a lot these days. The word is product sense. Does this person have a product sense?
Okay.
I don't know what product sense means. I think what it means is, do you have a sense of what is the best solution to solve a specific problem? So having that sense and having a truth seeker mindset, basically. So usually the first solution that you will hear from anybody would not be the best solution. So can you dig deeper and can you go to the right solution, etc. So yeah, I
Right.
think those are the skills.
Right.
And the whole reason I talked about all of these skills is so that I can convince you that you don't need an MBA to be a product
Yeah.
manager. Because if
Okay.
you look at it, right, what I talked about was very good problem solving, very good influence without authority,
Yeah.
truth seeker mindset. Then I talked about having a tech background. I talked about data and quants. All of this does not need an MBA,
Okay.
right? So yeah, that is my short answer. Over
Okay.
time, having an MBA might help you get a PM job in a very large company like Amazon, because again, there it's a lot of stakeholder management. But if
All
you
right.
want to be a builder, right, because most of the people are here are from CSE or at least from engineering, so
Yeah.
they might want to build stuff. Like that was my motivation. If you want to build stuff, then you definitely do not need an MBA to be a PM. In fact, I
All
would
right.
suggest spend those 2 years in working with a high growth startup and build products hands on. That will give you much more experience.
Okay. 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 That cleared up a lot of things actually.
Also, I've written a blog on this. So if anyone is interested, I'll share the link with you.
Yeah. Yeah. Please share the link.
And you
Yeah.
can add it in wherever,
Yeah.
right?
Sure. Sure. We will put it in the description of the YouTube and this as well.
Okay.
So, and also I would like to mention that this is also in YouTube Live as well. So, I would like to welcome all the YouTube Live people that you all want in Airmeet. If you are on Airmeet, you can post on Airmeet, or if you are on YouTube, you can post on YouTube chat as well, as soon as the interactive session starts after a few minutes. So next point I want to take up is you switched from RCZM to Yellow Messenger, right? So we know about RCZM and we know about Yellow Messenger. So now, is it better to go for promotions in an established MNC, or to go for a challenging and I know for a fact that job in startup is challenging and it's actually you feel like you are doing some nice work. So it's kind of a hard choice. Like, should you go for promotions in an established MNC, or should you go for a challenging job in a startup?
I think the way you can think about it is, usually when people try to answer this question, they think about it like, what is the one thing I want to gain, right? So people say, if you
Yeah.
want to gain a lot of ownership, you should work in a startup. If you want
Hmm.
to have a more comfortable ride, work in an MNC. But I think the way I thought about it was, what is it I cannot afford to lose?
Okay.
Right? So both of these have trade-offs. Both of these have good things and bad things. So I'll just play it out for you, right? So if you are in
Yeah.
an MNC, some of the things you will definitely lose a lot is, you will not have as much ownership of things, right, as
Okay.
you would have in
Yeah.
a startup. You
Yeah.
will not be able to see the big picture as clearly. So you will not have that big picture thinking. Unless you are in a really, really good MNC, probably you will not be working with the smartest people in your field, right?
Okay.
Probably you will not be working in a very high stress job, which pushes you to do more. So those are the things that you will lose out on.
Okay.
So if you are comfortable losing out on some of those things, I think you should go and work for an MNC, right? If it doesn't matter much for you whether you have the big picture thinking of the product or not,
Yeah.
you can do that. If you are in a startup, what you will lose is, you will lose that comfort, you will lose that predictability, right? You will probably lose partying every Friday, or a lot of these office events.
Yeah.
That is one. I think second, yeah, I think one important thing you probably don't have in a startup is a lot of order, right? So it's
Yeah.
very chaotic. Even if you are a data scientist, half of the time you're probably not doing data science work initially, but you're setting up that pipeline, you're
Yeah.
setting
Yeah.
up the architecture, you're figuring out how to get the data. So yeah, that orderliness, that well-defined architecture, well-defined systems, documented stuff is something you will lose out on if you're working on a
Right.
startup. Um, Yeah, I think these are the two things. Probably third thing that I've seen is in a startup, in some cases, maybe you are not working on the most complex tech problem, right? Maybe
Hmm.
usually because startups are building either consumer or business products, so it will be a more well-rounded problem statement. So you will be
Yeah.
working on end-to-end stack, right? So right from UX to business to product,
Hmm.
more rounded. But maybe if you are a machine learning researcher in Amazon, you are working on a very specific problem of
Right.
how to create knowledge graphs from text, let's say.
Okay. Okay.
So yeah, that changes. So it depends on what kind of problem. Do you want to build products that people use firsthand, or do you want to build a very,
Hmm.
very specific pointed problems? And there's a middle
Okay.
ground as well, which is something I recommend a lot to people, right? So you can actually join fast-growing mid-sized companies. These
Okay.
are companies that are 500 plus employees, probably 1,000 plus employees, and
Hmm.
probably less than 3,000, 4,000 employees, right?
All right.
And growing really fast. So
Hmm.
here probably you'll get the best of both worlds. You'll get some
Hmm.
level of orderliness, but at the same time you'll get a lot of this ownership. The catch is
Hmm.
it's extremely hard to
All
get
right.
into these companies because there is very few
Yeah.
of them. But
Yeah.
if I had to give you examples, companies like these would be Gojek, very good
Okay.
company. Then
Hmm.
Shopify is an example. Stripe is an example.
Hmm.
Right? Probably Airtable and all. So if you can
Okay.
go to these companies, you kind of get the best of both worlds.
Okay, that's really insightful into this point. So next, I want to talk about this. Since you mentioned that you do not need an MBA degree, and you actually have a degree you did a program called ISB Technology Entrepreneurship Program by ISB, right? So, like, can you talk about how this is kind of different from an MBA, and what is this program, and what was your experience attending it?
Yeah, so this was part of our college itself. This was one of the programs that ISB had brought to our college,
Hmm.
Technology Entrepreneurship Program. I think it was a really helpful program in the sense that it helped. That was the first time I learned about design thinking.
Okay.
So what that gives you is that gives you a very good framework of thinking about how to solve a problem, how to
Hmm.
think from a end user perspective. And
Hmm.
even if you want to be an engineer down the line, right, a product developer, it will
Yeah.
help you a lot. I mean, it will of course help you if you want to be a PM or
Hmm.
designer or a founder. But even if you
Hmm.
want to be a developer, it will help a lot. It is very different, or rather, I would say there is no intersection between what we learn in college and what this program teaches, which is good. So everything that you're learning is extra. It's
Hmm.
new, right? At the
Okay.
same time, it's augmented, which means that
Hmm.
you can use all of what you're learning in college and apply here.
Hmm. Okay.
So yeah, I love this program and I would absolutely recommend it to everybody.
Okay. So how is it actually different from an MBA?
Yeah. Um, I think in MBA, so this program teaches you about, again, building those 0 to 1 kind of products. So if you
Hmm.
have a specific idea or a specific pain point that you have seen in someone, how
Hmm.
do you use design thinking to solve that problem? And how do you convert that into a product?
Okay.
That
Okay.
is not what MBA teaches you. What MBA
Yeah.
teaches you probably is, let's say if you have a very large organization, right? Let's say if
Hmm.
you are a Coca-Cola, you are deciding whether you want to expand more into Indian tier 2 cities, tier 3
Yeah.
cities
Yeah.
or not. So that's a
Okay.
very different kind of problem. That's more
Hmm.
business management at a large scale company. And this is more
Okay.
about
Okay.
building 0 to 1 products
Okay. Okay.
as
Okay.
part of probably starting a new product line or a new company.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that was really good. So let's talk about things aside from this, and talk things about college. Okay.
Okay.
So you have been general manager of IG, and you have knowledge in a lot of different technologies, be it Node.js or machine learning and all, which requires amazing time management skills. Because I am a college student, I know it does. So, how did you manage college studies along with learning stuff beyond the course syllabus?
Hmm. So this you mean just the extra CS stuff or everything else, right? So
Everything,
IG,
yeah, everything, yeah, everything.
I think one biggest growth hack that I've learned is it's almost like cheating, right? So that is always
Okay.
hang out with smart folks.
Okay.
Because you just learn a lot from them. It
Hmm.
doesn't even feel like work or feel like learning, right? Even if you're
Yeah.
just taking a walk with them, you are hanging out with them, you end up learning something, or you at least get
Yeah.
motivated.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
biggest growth hack.
Okay.
That's how I decided to work in Yellow Messenger also, because I
Yeah.
thought these guys are smart, which it turned
Hmm.
out to be, and it
Yeah.
played out really well. That is the best time management skill, I would say. Hang out with
Okay.
smart folks, collaborate with them.
Hmm.
Second, very tactical thing I did was I snoozed all notifications, so I don't get any notification. No WhatsApp,
Oh,
Facebook,
okay.
Instagram. I
Okay.
would recommend you to do that. It sounds very simple, but it helps. It help me. It's like,
Hmm.
so I still use all of these, but I open them at my will instead of
Yeah, yeah,
just getting disturbed. Third
yeah.
thing you should do is you should have extreme curiosity. This is again a very general kind of advice, I would say.
Hmm. Hmm.
But just try to be curious about things. Ask a lot of questions. So
Yeah.
early on, I think what helped me learn a lot was was that I was around really smart people. So I was working in IG where I
Hmm.
had alumni like Naveen and Anand. Then I was working with Yellow Messenger. So I had these founders, early stage founders. Then
Yeah.
in GHC, I had very good folks. In yeah, we had NITW 101 where we used to write articles and all. We had like
Right.
Prashant and all, really, really awesome guys. All of these were 4 5
Okay.
years older than me, so
Okay.
that helped a lot. And I
Hmm.
think one final advice I would give is I'll give two more advice for time
Yeah, yeah.
management. One is that you should create a lot of stuff when you are in college. It can be any
Hmm.
kind of thing. It can be poems, it can be blogs, articles, code, product, speeches. Things should
Hmm.
come out of you. You should create things. It is very,
All
very,
right.
very important.
Yeah, yeah.
And don't think about what you are creating, where is it going, whether it's going getting used or not. Create a lot of
Hmm.
stuff.
Hmm.
So just build, 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 right? That's the famous thing. That is something I
Right.
followed. I would just keep creating stuff.
Hmm.
And quantity matters more when you're creating. And second thing you should try to do is you should also try to consume a lot of stuff, good amount of stuff. But when
Hmm.
you're consuming stuff, quantity does not matter as much. Quality matters
Yeah.
more.
Okay.
So you when you are creating stuff, prioritize quantity. When you
Hmm.
are consuming stuff, prioritize quality. And
Okay.
how will you get to know what is more quality stuff to consume? When you hang out with smart people, they'll tell you what is the good
Yeah.
quality stuff to consume. And
Yeah.
when I say hang out with smart people, it doesn't mean have coffee with them, right? It can even mean be in the right Discord channels, be in
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
right Twitter communities, whatever your way of being with smart people is, and whatever your
Hmm.
definition of smart is.
Hmm.
Try to be with the best people in the world in that particular field.
Okay.
And the second advice that I got from, I was just watching a video by Jack Dorsey. That is not something I followed in college, but I
Hmm.
follow now. I would recommend everyone is.
Okay.
He says some very simple. In his phone, he just maintains a do's and don'ts list. So do's is like list of all the things he wants to do during that day for sure.
Hmm.
So he has things like he wants to do a 7 minute workout. He wants to
Yeah.
do 50 push-ups. He
Hmm.
wants to be present in whatever meeting he is in instead of getting deviated. So those are, you can actually watch. I'll share link to that video.
Yeah. Sure. Sure.
Don'ts, then
Please.
there are some don'ts, right? So his don't
Yeah.
is, one of his don'ts he was saying was never have alcohol during the weekdays or
Okay.
before a meeting, apparently.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then some other things like this. So the point is, if you just follow some basic do's and basic don'ts every
Yeah.
single day, it's okay. That is it. You don't have to worry much. Yeah, I think
Okay.
that's the gyan on time management that I wanted to give.
Yeah. I'm definitely writing them down. So, thank you so much for that. And this is the last question that I would like to pose. So, you have been working in a startup for more than around 1.5 years now. So, we have a lot of students who, they come to second year, they think that, okay, I want to start something of my own.
Hmm.
So, you have that experience. And so, what would you suggest to those people who want to create an enterprise of their own, and what things should they keep in mind while undertaking such a job?
Hmm. Um, yeah, I mean, there is all that theoretical knowledge which I can share with you guys later,
Yeah.
right? So if anyone is interested, you can reach out to me if you want to start up. There's a lot of content on how do you define your target market, how do you raise
Yeah.
funds, etc. I'll not go to that right now. That we cannot
Okay.
cover in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
General rule of thumb would be, one is simple thing, right? It's a simple principle that you will miss 100% of the chances that you don't take.
Hmm.
So if you want to do it, please do it. Nothing is going to change. If it's not going to work out, I am standing here, I'm telling you, nothing will change 3 years from now. If financially no one else is dependent on you and you can take risk and you want to do it, you should absolutely go ahead and do it. If it does not work out, there will be plenty of people lined up to give you a job.
Hmm.
So don't worry about it for sure. Now, second thing is, don't do it for the wrong reason. Don't do it just to become famous and all. Again, there's very good. You can just search online. There is very good content written on it, right? What's the reality of being a founder and all. So the thing is, it is going to be much harder than you think it is right now. So don't do it for your ego or to get fame. And know that if you want to build a really good company, it takes at least 10 years to build a very good company. Like build like a sustainable business, right? That will continue to grow. So you have to have that kind of perseverance and passion, and it takes a lot of people as well to build a company. So you have to be open in working with a lot of different people if you want to build a company, right? And the only way you can sort of not stop that pain for 10 years is if you are really passionate about the problem. Or if you, I don't think it's being passionate about the problem. I think it is if you have any really strong reason to just not get killed, right? It could be anything. It could be your ego. It's like, I have to prove it to the world. I have to create a company. But for 10 years, if that thing can sustain you, go for it. But just keep in mind, you have to stay alive for 10 years. Third thing I think is speed is everything in a startup. In early days, the only job is to not die. So don't waste money. Launch an MVP as soon as you have an idea. The only way to validate your idea is not asking people. That can give you some initial validation, but no one can tell you for sure, right? So the only way is launch an MVP, show it to people, try to get those early customers. Do it really, really fast. Be very, very close to your customers. That's, I think, another one. Right? So don't be sitting in Innovation Garage in Warangal and building some product for some farmer in Vijayawada. That's not going to work. After you have built it, you have to go there, you have to live with them and see how they use it. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff online, like I said. So I'll share all of that. I think two more advices. One is, a lot of people tell me that they feel that they are too young to start up when they are in college, right? They feel that, will I be able to hire a salesperson who will work with me, who will listen to me? So yeah, just one thing, again, from experience, that's not how it works. In professional system, if you are able to make a lot of money for them, they'll work with you. Right? If you give them equity, you are a good person to work with. They are they are inspired by your vision. Then your age does not matter. So please, your age does not matter. Okay, that is one thing. And second thing is, before finding an investor, try finding a mentor. Because this is your first company, right? So even I would say, and this is something I've seen work very good with startups, right? That start right from college. Some startups that I know started from college, like Centaur, Cosmat, and all of that. So one very good thing that they did was, all of their investors are people who have deep knowledge about this field, about their field, right? Whatever field their company is in. So those investors also act as very good mentors. So since this is your first company, try to find good mentors. That will help a lot.
So that would be the end of questions from our side, Shubhi. So now we'll move to the interactive session part. So I would like to ask all the attendees on this Air Meet as well as on YouTube Live to start posting your questions. And we already have one right now in Air Meet. So this is question posted by Shreya Jha. She's a student in NIT Warangal. I'm just a new student in NIT Warangal CSE and I want to do my own startup. How to begin with that? Like, everything needs a first step. So what should it be?
So I think first step should be a pain point, right? Do you see any problem that anyone is facing, which you really, really want to solve? That is the first step. If you got that problem, then what is the solution that you are proposing? Is your solution viable enough? Right? That is the first. If you think your solution is viable from a market perspective, it can build a good business. Then next step is to launch an MVP. Try showing it to a very small set of users. Try make them buy, right? Make them spend money, because that will be a proof that yes, people are willing to spend money on it. If they're not spending money, then iterate it, figure out why they are not spending money, talk to a lot of people, again relaunch a version, and then try to sell it to them. So that's what the early journey looks like. So start with the problem, have have a few hypotheses or solutions, build MVPs around them, try to get early paying customers. That's
Okay.
after that, if you get those early customers, you then I'll tell you what to do next. First, you have to reach
Okay.
there.
Okay. So we are getting more questions now. The asking the main reason why undergrads are reluctant to join startup is because they are paid in stocks, unlike MNCs. How do you figure if it's worthwhile?
Hmm. Yeah, this is a hard thing to figure. I mean, even the most talented investors in the world fail at it, right?
Yeah.
Sequoia, lot of Sequoia has been doing really good. Lot of investors.
Hmm.
So the way even that investors work is that if they make 100 investments, probably 5 or 10 would be successful, right? And they are so successful that they overpower the failure of the other 90.
Okay.
So yeah, okay, just going to the question again, right?
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, it
How do
is.
you figure if it's worthwhile? Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are two ways in which you should look at your career initially, right? One is whether you are learning enough out of it. So even your learning, your talent and potential, that is a capital in itself, right? Uh,
Hmm.
why is that a capital? Because that's an investment that, let's say, you have two job offers. One is for 1 lakh per year, 12 lakhs per annum. Another
Hmm.
is for 16 lakhs per annum, right? So it's
Yeah.
a 4 lakhs per annum gap. So let's say if you can you assume that you are investing that 4 lakhs per annum in yourself, and that
Hmm.
will help you gain some skill or some network access that will make you that will give its own returns over the next 10-15 years, right? So that is one way of looking at it.
Hmm.
So if you kind of have some sense of what kind of skills you want to gain, and would joining a startup help you gain those skills, and what kind of startups would help you gain that skill, right? Then you should go for it, because I think early on, then there's also this concept of time value of money, right? So early on,
Yeah.
the investment that you'll make for yourself will pay for itself over time.
Hmm.
The second is obviously the financial aspect, which is the stocks aspect. So there, just you can also flip the question, right, and say that if your startup ends up succeeding, then you're going to make massive amount of money. So if
Yeah.
you look at an Amazon, a janitor at Amazon was given some stocks, and now she's worth billions of dollars or millions of dollars.
Okay.
So the skill here is you need to be able to evaluate
Hmm.
which startup is possibly going to be successful. This
Okay.
no one can predict it with very high accuracy, but you have certain metrics, and we can have a whole session on it. But I'll
Okay.
try to give some metrics, right? So one is,
Yeah.
first question is that market itself growing very fast?
Hmm.
The way to know is that a lot of investors are talking about it. Lot of people are investing in that market. You know, that market has a lot of sort of that 100 employees plus companies that, they're basically growing companies doing really well over the last
Hmm.
2-3 years. And plus,
Hmm.
what is your perception? So if you look at the future, do you think 5 years from now, whatever this company is building will be very valuable?
All
Plus, do
right.
you think these founders have the potential to build that thing?
Hmm.
Would you like to build it with them? These are the three questions. If the answer is yes, then it means that there is a high chance that whatever stocks you are getting, right, 4 years from now, they will totally they'll fill up for whatever money you are not getting right now. So
Hmm.
the whole game is about being able to correctly predict the potential value of these stocks based on
Yeah.
the market and everything. Of course, you can, since you guys are still in college, you can take help from seniors, alumni,
Hmm.
etc., right, in evaluating these companies. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is another question by Divas Jindal. What are the main skills one needs as a product manager, and how can college folks start learning these?
Yeah, so main skills, I think I already talked about. One
Yeah,
is
yeah.
very good problem solving abilities,
Hmm.
very good systems thinking abilities, very good communication, right,
Hmm.
etc. Um, the best way for college folks to start learning these is to build products. Just build,
Okay. Yeah.
and it could be building anything. Like I said, build, write blogs, record videos.
Hmm.
I would say create small games. Build, just
Yeah.
keep building a lot of products, pitching
Yeah.
them,
Hmm.
and if possible, read books. Read books and write. That's the best thing you can do as a college person.
Hmm. Okay. We have a question from Yash Deshmukh. He's asking about some middle range companies in India.
Okay, some middle range companies in
Yeah,
India.
yeah, you mentioned
I'd
them.
have to think about that. Yeah, the most obvious answers were like Stripe, Shopify. It's Yellow Messenger is a middle range company actually now,
Okay.
because after Series B, I think any good Series B company, which is
Hmm.
like at around 500 plus employees, right, and less than 2,000 in
Yeah.
a growing market, would be
Hmm.
would be a good candidate.
All right.
You can think of,
So,
if you had to answer, some of these edtech companies are doing good, An Academy and all, but
hmm.
it also has to be a field that you enjoy working with, or working on, right? Yeah,
Hmm.
I can look up and share some of those with you.
Yeah, yeah, sure, please do. So the next question is by the CS guy. Hey Shubhi, I'm looking to get some good skills, but there are many technologies available. So how should I figure out which technologies to learn?
Why do you want to learn, is what it depends on, right? If it's to get a job, then you should learn what most of the people ask,
Yeah.
because if you want to get a job in an MNC, usually people would want you to have good C++ or Python skills, right? Then that is what you should learn. If it is to, uh, skills is a very broad term. I don't know. Can you explain the question a little bit more? I think we need more context
Uh,
for this question.
yeah. Okay. The CS guy, if you are hearing this, please, if you can, elaborate a little more on your question, and we will get back to it later on. So next we have a question from Vishal Singh. Uh, I like most about consuming good quality thing and building things up quantitatively. My question is what to do in starting years of software developer job in startup and don't part.
Okay, what to do and what
Yeah.
to not do as a early developer in a startup?
Yeah.
That is a very good question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what you should definitely do is, again, build a lot, right? So just,
Hmm.
one is take extreme amount of ownership. Even if this is a technology you have never worked on, you feel you cannot do it, just take as much responsibility as you can, as you are getting,
Hmm.
and just throw yourself at it. Over time, trust me, you will be able to figure it out and you will be able to do it. That is one main do that I would say. Second do is, like I've been iterating, as an early stage startup developer, join a company with very smart people. Make sure that you're
Hmm.
working with some of the most smart people in the world, or in the country at least. um,
Yeah.
any other do that I can think of? This actually encapsulates everything, because if you take a lot of responsibility, right,
Yeah.
and since you have to deliver it, that will force you to figure out rest of the stuff. That will force you to manage your time. Not,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I think that is the do.
Hmm.
The don't would be, yeah, I think be careful before choosing the startup,
Hmm.
because these days everyone is starting a startup, and not everyone, or not every kind of company might be the best company for you to work at. So be very
Okay.
careful when you are choosing the company that you want to work for. Second is, never
Hmm.
let your mental health go down the drain,
Okay.
whether you are in a startup or not. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we have next question from Anmol Sahu. How were you able to get a job as product manager after being a software engineer for around 2 years? And what did you have to study to get the job? Was the new job compensation comparable to the software engineer? A lot of questions here. Okay. So
Hmm.
one by one, if you can please answer them.
How were you able to get, right?
Yeah.
So I'll tell you how I was thinking about my career. So after 2 years, I knew that, because in college also I was friends with all of these startup people, and
Hmm.
I was always very interested in building a product or building a business. So I would just sit, or just lie down on the bed and watch all these Microsoft and Apple conferences, because I loved
Yeah.
seeing people launching products. So I always wanted to be that person
Hmm.
launching that product. So that made it kind of easier for me to know that, yeah, I want to build a product, or rather I
Hmm.
want to be a PM. The reason I did not continue as a software developer was because being a software developer really narrows your scope, right? So at one time
Hmm.
you will only be working on one app, but I
Yeah.
really loved thinking a lot about different kind of products. So as a PM,
Hmm.
that sort of takes you one level higher, right, where
Yeah.
you can think of multiple products at the same time. Plus, I could use all of my other skills like good communication and all of that,
Hmm.
and my network and all. that's why I chose to become. How I became was actually through my personal network itself, because in second year I had interned at Yellow Messenger, which was again that sort of a bet or a risk that I took. It was just a 3 or 4 people company, but at that time I chose to spend a month with them, and I just interned with them. So we already had the CEO, who's Raghu. He knew me already, and we were in very good terms. So when I was clear that I want to be a product manager and I want to join a startup, I chose to just reach out to the people I knew, and Raghu was one of them. And we did the interview, and it turned out really well for me. If that had not worked, what I would have done is I would have applied for entry level roles so I would have made a list of top 50 startups in the world, and I would have applied for entry level product roles there, or aligned roles. Even data analyst and all is kind of aligned to product, right? So any aligned role. If that had not worked, I would have published probably 50 product management blogs or 30 product management blogs, very good quality posts, shared those with these CEOs, and then that would have definitely worked, right? So that's how you could have navigated it. And yeah, talking about the role, initially, because I used to work in RCSIAM. RCSIAM is kind of famous for paying quite high. So yes, the salary was not matchable initially. I had to take quite a big cut the first year when I joined. Plus, my role was not actually a product manager role. In fact, when I joined, I think Yellow Messenger was a 35 people company. And there was no product organization as such. We had Rashid, who is the chief product officer, and we had 1 or 2 product managers, but still we were too young to, have a formal product organization. So my role was known as product specialist. And basically the definition was do whatever it takes. Basically just do whatever it takes, right? To make sure that developers are able to be most productive, sales guys are not seeing any blockers, etc. So that was the initial description. It was very fluid. It was kind of chaotic, so to say. And yeah, that's what happened. And then over time, what happened is so I joined Yellow Messenger on 10th April 2019. Over the next 1 year, the company grew crazily, right? So from 35, we grew to 350. And as part of that, the product team also grew a lot. So we hired 5-6 more PMs and product analysts, etc. And we created a whole product management organization. And since I was there from the start, that gave me kind of a head start, because I had a lot of context about what we are doing, why we are doing certain things, and etc. Right? So that kind of was my induction into product management as well. So I think the key takeaway from here is if you can join if you think a company is going to do well after a year, and you can join that company as an early person, right? It doesn't even have to be product management. Join as probably a developer, and after a year you can be a PM. That's totally fine, right? But if you can join early on and you can grow with the company, there is nothing like that for your career at a startup.
Okay, so moving on to the next question. Khemraj Marathe is asking, in product development, how far it matters that product is similar to the existing product and gaining audience?
Yeah, I think just one thing to add to the previous question. I said that I was not paid enough, but now I would also like to add that now Yellow Messenger is paying pretty well. Right? Yeah, so guys, join us. That's just a little bit of just a disclaimer, right? Yeah, that happens because initially it was not a defined role, but after a year we were very clear about what that role is going to look like. And yeah, it basically they were able to match whatever the industry compensation is. Usually high growth companies pay really well, so that's not something you have to worry about. Sorry, we can go to the next question.
So how far does it matter that the product you are developing is similar to an existing product, and for gaining audience as well?
Okay, I think the question is here. In product development, how far it matters that the product is similar? I think you will have to explain this question, dude. I didn't understand.
Okay. I think my internet was off for a few seconds. Is it okay?
Yeah, it's fine now.
Okay. So what I think is he wants to ask is how far does it matter that the product you are trying to develop it so like when you are developing a lot of times it might happen that the product that you want to put out in the market is similar to an actual already existing product. So how far does it matter? Like and I guess by gaining audience it means that what to do to gain audience for that product, to gain bias for that product, and so on.
I think what to do to gain audience is very hard to tell a generic answer because it will depend a lot on whether it's B2B, it's B2C, what tier of cities you are targeting, right? What's the demographic that looks like? What is the market share? So it will depend on a lot of that. If you want, you can come on to the stage and we can discuss this. We have time towards the end. So
Yeah.
I can't tell you a general answer for how to gain audience. How much does it matter? It does not matter. I mean, just think about Zoom, right?
Yeah.
So there's been video conferencing since forever. There was Skype, there was Cisco WebEx, and all. But then Zoom was able to capture a very good share of the market.
Yeah.
Similarly, Facebook is another example that people give. I mean, think of TikTok, right? TikTok is a social channel.
Yeah. Right.
Instagram was a social channel, but all of them turned out to be very different. So it does not matter. And also, you cannot say that why would your product be similar to the other, right? It wouldn't be.
Yeah. Yeah.
The market that you are tackling or the problem that you are solving would be the same. So the question is, can you solve that problem in a better way that is at least 10 times better than all the existing alternatives? That
Okay.
if the answer is yes, then you should go for it. Right? So I'll just repeat it. I think it's very important. Your
Yeah.
market, your product will not be the same. Your market will be the same.
Mm.
And the question is, can you solve this problem in a 10x better way than all the existing alternatives? That is probably the best answer to this.
Okay. So we have a question from Harsha Kashyap. Is it suggestible to start our career as SDE and then to PM, or directly to PM after college?
It depends. I think I can only give this answer from a personal point of view. It helped me a lot to be a software developer first before being a product manager. Because now I really understand, one is I understand how technology works, not just theoretically, but since I've built software a lot, right? I did that in college and then 2 years in RCCM. I know how technology works, what are the constraints involved. I can think in those terms. Second is I can be very realistic about what a developer can achieve in a certain amount of time. So it's very easy for me to connect with my developers as well, right? And especially our product is a very, very tech product. It's like a deep tech product. So
Yeah.
it helps even a lot more over there. So my personal suggestion, if you just came and asked, I cannot give a generic answer to this, but when I hire, I prefer people who have software development experience. And if you
Okay.
came and asked me, I would recommend the same to you, just because it
Okay.
gives you that initial core foundation.
Okay. Great. So we have next question from Jayanta Kumar Roy from NIT Warangal. By skills, he meant that there are many things to learn, like web development, machine learning, blockchain, etc. So, okay, should we be the master of one or jack of all trades but king of none? I guess that's what he means by that. And what would be useful for us?
The thing is, the honest answer is, it's always better if you can be a master in one.
Yeah.
But the problem is, it's very hard to be a master in one, right? I would love to be a blockchain master expert, right? The best
Yeah.
person, or probably the at least top 50 people in the world on blockchain. But
Yeah.
the thing is, it will take 10 years for me to do that.
Hmm.
So now the question you need to ask yourself is, do you have that kind of passion towards the field, that kind of conviction, right? That genuine curiosity to keep going deeper and deeper into that. If you have it, right, you should go ahead and keep following that one field. You should keep but that has to be a field that really interests you. Until you find that field that really interests you, try your hands at multiple things, because
Okay.
you are still too young in life, right? Probably you'll have a career till you're probably 50 or something. So you still have time to explore. And unless you are really passionate about something, don't force yourself into it. Don't be like, everyone is like machine learning. I'll go and I'll go really deep into machine learning. In 1 year, I'll be the ML expert. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, first test the waters, be genuinely curious about things, get enough passionate about one thing. When you are passionate enough, go extremely deep into it. Just keep going deeper and deeper. Get similar job, make friends from that field, get one job after the other that is just in that field. And that's
Yeah.
how over a period of 10 years you will be an expert.
Okay.
I think the problem or the mistake I made in college was assuming that in 1 year I can be an ML master, or at least in 3 years I would be.
Yeah.
And then it would not happen, and I would keep getting disheartened again and again. So don't make
Okay.
that mistake that I made.
Okay. Great. So now we have another question from Mohit Talreja. Okay, this sounds like an interesting question. How did you muster the courage to take such a big risk to leave a high-paying job at an MNC and take up the role at a startup? And what was going in your mind at that junction?
Yeah, dude. Honestly, I think I don't know why people say joining a startup is a risk. Because what is the risk involved, right? If at that time, whatever salary I was getting, it was more than enough for me to pay my bills and even save some. If for 1 minute we leave aside the Arcesium salary, which was
Hmm.
high for different reasons, right? Obviously, they want
Hmm.
lower attrition, so the
Yeah.
salaries are much higher.
Yeah.
That pay was good enough for me. I did not have
Hmm.
to take loans. Loan is a risk. Borrowing money
Yeah.
is a risk. I did not have to do that. So there's actually
Hmm.
no risk at all
Hmm.
involved here. If you look at the other side, assume that I did not do this. If assume I did not make the switch and I continued in that company where I would be 5 years from now, that was terrifying to me. That felt like a risk, right? Not
Yeah.
moving was a big risk.
Hmm.
So I think you need to be very honest with yourself about what is a real risk to you and why is that a risk.
Hmm.
Right? I think people have overhyped startups as risky. Startups are actually not
Okay.
risky. Startups are risky for founders probably because founders are probably putting in their personal money or they are borrowing
Hmm.
a lot of money, etc. Right? But
Hmm.
for you as an employee, not really risky. Second thing
Okay.
is if you're good enough in your field, if you're willing to work hard, if this company does not work out, the next company will.
Hmm.
Right? And there are plenty of startups, a lot of good growth companies doing a bunch of
Yeah.
amazing stuff. Um, so yeah, it's actually not that risky. And I actually took two risks, right? I did not just switch from. I actually switched the field itself. That was more
Yeah.
terrifying. So I was like,
Okay.
okay, now I am a developer, which is a well-reputed, high-paying thing. Now, if I go to
Hmm.
PR, that probably would be harder to come back. But if you go
Hmm.
to a startup from Amazon, let's say, and you don't like that startup, after 6 months you can apply back to Amazon and come back to Amazon, right? No problem
Okay.
at all. So
Yeah.
it's not as
Yeah.
risky as you think it is.
Hmm. Okay, so next question from Divas Jindal is how did TEP at ISB help you and in what way did it add value to your career? I think some of it you have answered already. So if you would like to add something to what you have said earlier on
Yeah,
that.
it gave me a framework to think about problems. After attending that, I thought about every problem in the same way. So
Hmm.
one problem we faced at IG was we wanted to conduct a hackathon. There was no money
Okay.
because college had basically scrapped funds because of some order that had come.
Hmm.
So yeah, that problem I could actually solve with that framework.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I think in short, it gives you a framework to think about problems, and that's a very good skill to have for life.
Okay. Great. So we have another question from Chaitu Pawan from NITW. Being a tech PM at Yellow Messenger, building conversational AI products which involve deep NLP as well as UX
Mm.
research, were there any situations where you have to trade off between UX and tech? How would you prioritize them?
Yeah. So ideally, you will not have to trade off between UX and tech because tech is what will enable great UX, right? So if you think about, I don't know if you guys have used Cred or anything. Think about any good app, right? That automatically think about your MacBook if you have used MacBooks.
Yeah.
That one touch thing, right? So you can just
Hmm.
touch the touchpad and it just opens up. So that amazing UX is actually enabled by technology.
Hmm.
So I would say technology and UX are not orthogonal to each other. Amazing technology is the only thing that can enable great UX, right? Now, earlier we used to have like such a big desk with like one folder, one file, blah blah blah. Now technology evolved and everything is in a box, right? Which is so small, which is probably your phone or your laptop. So amazing UX is enabled by technology. I think the trade-off you are talking about is more about timelines, right? So let's say you have to ship something, you have to build something. You can either make it work amazingly well, or if obviously you will have to put in more time, right? If you want to make it work
Yeah.
amazingly well. Yeah, I think at that point, the question you should ask is what are you trying to achieve with it, right? If it's early, initial, where you are just trying to get validation about your idea, and UX is not a big part of the idea, it does not matter much. Time or speed is of more importance to you. You should just ship it faster. But if, let's say, you want to get a feature adopted to a lot of people, you have already validated this idea, you want to get it adopted by a lot of people. Obviously, if the experience is good, a lot of people are going to adopt it. And what the second question is there a problem in waiting for 15 days, right? If there is no problem in launching it 2 weeks later, add that good UX and then launch it. Yeah, that is what I will say. And please let me know if I did not understand the question correctly. You can just type it in the comments.
Okay. So we have next question from Aman Kohli. Can you shed light on work-life balance in startups, and do you find enough time to follow your hobbies?
Uh, Yes, I would definitely say that you will have to give more time to your work if you're working in a startup, right? As opposed to if you're working in a large company. But I think what happens is so I personally still get a lot of time for just relaxing and chilling out. I usually do not work on weekends. Saturday, Sundays are fully off. Uh, so yeah, that way that work-life balance is there. But yeah, it has definitely reduced a lot as opposed. So when I was in RCHM, I used to go for a lot of marathons and stuff. I used to play a lot of racket sports. That has kind of gone down now
Okay.
after joining here. But it has not really impacted my health because I'm still able to go to the gym,
Yeah.
and I'm still able to spend time with my friends, etc. So it's
Yeah.
not something that is negatively impacting my life. So it's not in that sense of work-life balance. But do I have a lot of time to pursue anything under that? No, I have to. It is definitely a trade-off that I have to make. Having said that, I think one great thing it will make you do is it will make you become really disciplined about your time also, right? So earlier, if I used to set up a 1 hour meeting to solve a problem, now I just do it on Slack asynchronously and it gets done in 10-15 minutes.
Yeah.
Right. Similarly, I prioritize and I solve the hardest problem first day in the morning. So now I've become much more disciplined about how I spend my time so that I have that time at the end of the day for myself. So the answer is yes, it will be hard, but you can still manage it. You'll have to be really smart with how you spend your time.
Okay. We have a question from Sai S. For a fresh software engineer at an MNC, what would be your tips, suggestions to him or her? Like mistakes you should avoid, things we should try and learn, etc.
Yes. Um, I think one amazing thing that you have at a large company is that you will have a bunch of information, right? Let's say if you are at Microsoft, you have access to probably all of their published research for free, right? Or maybe you have access to a lot of Coursera, LinkedIn courses. A lot of those you can just get reimbursed. At RCSM, we had like an amazing desk with two or three large monitors. It was like a standing desk. So every weekend, whenever I was not chilling out with my friends and all, at least for the first half of Saturday, I would just go to the office and I would just take some courses and stuff because the monitor and everything was so cool and there was AC and
Yeah.
all. I could do it well. So
Yeah.
use all the resources that you have nicely, right? So use all of those research papers that you have, everything else, all the courses, all those reimbursements, office space, use that well. Second is make
Okay.
friends with the smartest people in your office because if you are in an MNC, pretty sure you'll have a lot of smart people.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Google, Amazon, all of these guys hire such smart people. So don't feel like I am a new person, I am a fresher. Can I go talk to them? Just go talk to them.
Yeah.
Maybe just talk to them over Skype or Teams or whatever your internal communication is, and learn more about them because you are still a developer, right?
Yeah.
Learn what being an SDE2 feels like. Learn what being a program manager feels like. Learn more about what a UX guy's job is. So try to get a more well-rounded view of all of these things. And
Yeah.
I'm not going into more into technical side of things, right? Try writing clean code. I mean, that is all obvious. So I am not going into those things. But if I had to summarize that in one side, yes, try to do your job well, right? Write really clean code, conduct code reviews really judiciously, etc. Try to learn from your peers. Yeah.
Okay, so I think we have time for some more questions. Bhaskar Jainath is asking, what are the major responsibilities as a product manager in a company like Yellow Messenger?
Major responsibilities, you will be given a goal. So you, for example, let's say you are told, okay, figure out how chatbots can be used in e-commerce, right?
Yeah.
And over the time of next 3 years, you have to build a business on it, and you could have some target, right? Maybe you together figure out, okay, we'll build a $2 million business over the next three
Yeah.
years. So that is a
Okay.
problem statement that you're given. That's a very broad level problem statement, and then now you have to execute on this problem. So your role would involve first defining the problem really well, identifying what your target market is, what your users are, going and talking to a lot of customers, analyzing data to understand the problem better. Once you have understood the problem, second is proposing a few solutions to those problems. Right? So that is, you are still playing in the problem stage. You are just trying to understand
Yeah.
the problem well, propose solutions. Once you have proposed solutions, you have to align your leadership team to those solutions, right? So your
Yeah.
strategy could be, okay, here's what we think. We think WhatsApp is speaking very well. So maybe we want to, launch some kind of a D2C offering, a direct to consumer
Okay.
offering, so that all our
Yeah.
local businesses can start having bots on WhatsApp. And this is the market size. This is how it will work out for us. So you
Okay.
align your leadership and you tell them to execute this plan over the next 3 years. These are the resources we will need. So you do your resource planning, you go to your leadership, they'll approve it, you build a team. Now is when you start solving this problem, right? So you are more into execution mode now. So at this point, once you have figured out in your mind what you want to build, you would want to spec it out so that a
Yeah.
developer can understand it, right? So then you think about what are all the corner cases that are possible, right? What should this look like? What should this workflow look like? How does this fit with the rest of the product?
Yeah.
Right? What are the first priority items here? What things can wait? What kind of technologies would we need, etc. And then you keep working with your development team and making sure that those things are getting shipped version by version, right? Now,
Yeah.
once those things are shipped, you have to also make sure that it goes to the market. Let's say your team has built something, but nobody knows about it. Its value is $0, right? So now
Yeah.
you have to work with sales and marketing team. You have to create collateral for them. You have to create content for them. You have to set up sessions with them so that they understand what you have built, and they can go out and talk about it. They can create campaigns on it. They can run ads on it. And as and when your feature gets launched and it's being used, it's your responsibility to also drive adoption of that particular feature. So you will have certain product analytics, right? So maybe if the problem statement that I gave was very, very high level, but usually if you are in a mid-sized to large company, it will be a smaller problem statement. So it would be, let's
Okay.
say you are the product manager of YouTube, and your job is to increase the number of maybe increase the total amount of gaming content on the YouTube platform. Or
Yeah.
your job is to probably get more number of comments, so that comments reflects engagement, right? So get more comments. So at that point, it's your job to also keep track of your key metrics. So you will be using a tool like Metabase, or a lot of tools are there. Heap is there. Lot of such tools are there to measure these things. So you'll be measuring and tracking whether you are able to achieve those outcomes. If not, what is to be changed over there. So
Yeah.
essentially, it's the whole cycle. It's from understanding the problem to proposing the solution, aligning your leadership, speccing out the solution, making sure it gets executed, and then taking it to the market. Once it goes to the market, measuring its adoption, and you'll find some gaps, right? So again, understanding those gaps then become new problems, and then basically trying to solve those problems further down the line. So that's the whole end-to-end product ownership.
Okay, I guess we have one last question here. So, how did your experience at RCCM help you develop your product management skills? And did the work at RCCM offer you a conducive product management environment, given that you were a software engineer there?
Yeah, so like I said, my experience at RCCM helped me a lot in understanding what launching a tech product looks like, right? How do you think about a technology problem? How do you work with people to solve it? How do you scope it out? How do you kind of map it to specific releases? Then how do you do QA? What kind of issues you face related to user experience? What's the typical release pipeline like, etc. So it helped me a lot in understanding how engineering works, how the world of engineering works. So that is one. And the second thing was, yeah, did it offer a conducive product management environment? I think, yeah. So one good thing about RCSHM is that they also have product managers, and I got an opportunity to work with an amazing product manager. His name is Ram Chidambaram. He is a pretty senior leader at RCSHM. That is a good thing. That kind of, actually, that's how I got to know that what I want to do is known as product management. So that way it did help. And I would also add that a lot of it was actually just personal learning driven from curiosity, right? So at the same time, while I was in college, while I was in RCSHM, I was reading a lot of these business books, talking to a lot of startup founders, seeing some of them firsthand. So that also contributed a lot to be able to switch to product management.
Okay. So someone is asking, are you a 5 a.m. club member?
Okay, I keep trying to be. Some days I am, some days I am not. It depends on how tired I am. I am not a consistent 5 a.m. club member, but I am an early riser.
Okay. So yeah, I guess that's the end of questions from both YouTube Live and Airmeet. Yeah. So that concludes our session. So thank you so much for attending this, Shubhi, and we were honored to have you. And this has been a really great session. So thank you very much for
Thank you
again.
so much. Thanks
Okay.
everyone for joining. We'll
Yeah.
share those links that we talked about.
Yeah, sure. Please share those links. We will share them with everyone.
Okay,
So
cool.
thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye, guys. Have a good
Bye,
weekend.
guys, and thanks for all the attendees for attending this.